Check one, two.
They bring it right up here.
Let's go.
Okay.
Anybody have their camera out?
For 3 years old. He might be able to help.
I should have read
Yeah,
that.
no, no. Yeah, well, I was thinking for a second.
It was the right eyes.
I know. My daughter was talking about you.
You did.
She said, of course, her son.
Placement.
Welcome everybody to the Hewitt City Council special meeting tonight, February the 20th, 2024. And all members of council are here, which allows for a declaration of a quorum and a call to order at 7 p.m. If you please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. Okay, under the public comments, the City Council invites citizens to speak on any topic not already scheduled for a public hearing. The Texas Open Meetings Act prohibits the council from discussing, responding to, or acting on any comments or items not properly posted on the agenda. And members of the public who wish to speak must first complete the public comment form. Do we have any tonight?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, first up is under the special presentation and recognitions is the briefing and discussion on the solar eclipse of 2024. Mr. Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Just thought we'd take an opportunity based upon the amount of publicity and potential of the number of people that may be in and around McLennan County during the solar eclipse of 2024. I thought we'd ask Assistant City Manager Jim Devlin to give you guys a presentation this evening with regards to our activities and planning and preparation for that event.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, Mayor and Council, I appreciate it tonight. We are going to talk about the solar eclipse. I know this has gotten a lot of publicity over the last week or so, but we've actually started the planning for this since November of last year. It's going to occur on Monday, April 8th. We're going to get about 4 minutes of total darkness. And so with this event, it becomes a major event. Began planning in October of 2023 with McLennan County Emergency Management. They put out the call. That was the first meeting that we went to talk about this eclipse, and they started to tell us some horror stories of eclipse of the past and talking about our population in McLennan County possibly going up to 5 times the size of what it normally is the week of, leading up to, and the day of the event. So we began the first planning stage in October. Our first meeting was in November of 2023, where we brought the department heads in to discuss what we need to do. There were a lot of things to take into consideration. One of the things being what kind of events were going to take place. Oops, going the wrong way. Was the chamber going to do something? We brought them in. We made contact with our solid waste service because it's on a Monday, which is a typical trash day. Then we started talking about the planning of, public safety and the city facilities and library. Were they going to do an event? So we kind of started putting all our ducks together to figure out what is going to happen. But this is the expected path, April 8th. You can see we're not in the best position, but it's going to be good enough that if you don't have a seat, Hewitt, Texas is going to be a decent place to watch this eclipse from an open space for those 4 minutes. So what can you expect in McLennan County? So this came from emergency management, and if you go and you look and you try to book hotels for the week up to the 8th, you'll find that the majority of them are very full. These were booked over a year in advance. Apparently this is a huge event from folks in Europe. They've been getting calls, some of our communities, local communities have been getting calls for over a year on events that they may be planning or what facilities or areas that they have that can accommodate them, large groups of people. So hotels and restaurants are going to be full. Large economic impact for Central Texas because there's going to be a lot of people here spending a lot of money. Visitors arriving as early as 4 days prior to the eclipse. So we're not just talking about that Monday, we're talking about the week prior to. And we'll get into a little bit of that with some of our planning. Open spaces filled with people and vehicles, impacts on parks, possible campsites established for multiple days, stressed city resources, run on grocery stores, heavy traffic for several hours following the eclipse, any unforeseen, the unknown. We don't know what could potentially happen with the amount of people here. Could see, and this was the original estimate, so don't get beside yourself when you see 2 times to 5 times the population of McLennan County, which means 536,000 to over 1 million people in our area. It's hard to define that number. You can't define how many people are going to come, but there are people that are coming to watch the eclipse. One of the events that we used as examples, or actually it was several events that we used as examples, was the 2017 eclipse that went from, I believe, the East Coast to the West Coast or vice versa, and the impact that had on communities. Marion, Illinois is a community pretty similar to our size. I think they had an additional 40,000 people in their community, and basically they just said be ready for anything, because apparently everything happened there. So potential for issues for Hewitt, traffic and transportation issues. We've got some major TxDOT roadways that run through our community in addition to Interstate 35. Parking could be a potential issue. Waste management, again, picking up that solid waste on that day. Calls for service, both in 911 capacity, just regular admin phone lines, calls for service for police and fire. Organizational staffing. Fortunately, it's a Monday, so we will have everybody here anyway, so it's not as if we have to bring in everybody on a weekend shift. Urban camping. We have 2 very large parks that are nice spots for that. Fires, wildland and structure. EMS calls, property crime, civil disturbances, community fuel supply, and communication systems overloaded, especially during the time of the event and people live streaming the event. So we've heard information about cell phone disruption, the towers, social media disruption. I had a meeting last week at 911, emergency, the McLean County 911 district. They expressed their concerns to the major carriers, AT&T, Verizon, and they were assured that cell phone issues should not happen. They said that they're capable of handling whatever influx comes into McLennan County, because that becomes an issue for 911. Some of the case studies that they used from 2017 talked about the influx of calls to 911 that are not emergencies. They're trying to do a campaign right now for 911 is for emergencies only, and we're talking about the potential of opening up. They have a center over there at the 911 district. It's kind of can be a potential rollover or an emergency operations center, about potentially staffing some folks over there as well, just to try to get some of the rollover that may come to the county. I kind of liken this, and I've said this multiple times for those of us that remember this is kind of like our new Y2K. We hope that nothing happens, but we have to be prepared for everything that does happen. So I'm hoping that whatever resources we put available to this, or to give to this, that we can start letting them go early and send them on their way, and nothing takes place in Hewitt, Texas. But we are going to have extra folks here. So what are we doing? So we began planning in November of 23. Additional police department staffing getting 1 week prior to the eclipse event is needed. We'll feel that out in talking with the chief. It kind of depends on what we see coming into the area as extra officers being placed on the shifts. The day of the event expects significant overstaffing, calls for service, and traffic-related issues. And we think that's going to be the biggest issue for us in our community, is going to be the traffic. Certainly after the event. And with Interstate 35, and then again, one of the case studies that they showed us at the emergency management meeting was a trip that would normally take 45 minutes between 2 communities turned into, was it 14 hours? Because of gridlock, and you have people running out of gas and cars breaking down and those type of things. So we think that's going to be one of the biggest issues for us. So we're trying to prepare for that. This will include officers and additional telecommunicators. HPD is communicating with other law enforcement agencies for coordinated response and calls for service, because we border Waco, and we border we have areas that border the county, Robinson, potentially even over into Woodway. So coordinating those responses and the staffing. I think most of those agencies are going to be in a similar situation as we are as far as staffing is concerned. On the fire side, add additional staff depending upon the calls for service that are coming in prior to the eclipse. They can establish up to 2 additional units that can run. Chief Christian was talking about utilizing the brush trucks more often for that smaller, quicker response rather than the engines, and relieve the engines for essentially what they're needed for. Brush trucks, quick response engines needed. Communicating with Waco FD and AMR and try to get a coordinated response, because the other component which we don't have control over is the medical part of it. And what is AMR going to do? I believe they're going to try to get staffing from areas in Texas that are not going to be part of the eclipse or have are going to see the eclipse and bring some additional units in because they think they're going to have additional calls as well. General service is going to be available. They're going to be able to assist us with traffic-related movement, park and street services, utilities, same thing. You know, we have to think about additional folks coming into our community. What does that do to our utility system? It pretty much can operate on its own, and I think we're in a great position right now, as of today, and talking with Kevin, that it should be able to sustain that day. If we have 40,000 people that come to Hewitt, Texas, we should be able to sustain, based on the time of year that we're in April, should be able to sustain water and wastewater as need be, but we'll double check that and make sure that we're able to continue to do that. And any additional issues in the community. Public library is going to be holding an eclipse, a total eclipse of the HBL from 12 to 5. They've got on their website that, you know, it's first come, first serve, because as we know now, Midway is out they're off that day because of the eclipse. So I think they are going to not run the buses because the bus traffic time is going to be somewhere right after the eclipse is over. So they got hands-on activities for all ages at the time. It's a first come, first serve program, and because of the influx of visitors that we think we're going to be having coming to the community. So I suspect that event from a local standpoint with our community members will probably be very well attended. So it'll probably be very full over in the City Hall Library parking lot. 1 week prior to the eclipse, and I mentioned the parks and the overnight camping, 1 week prior to the eclipse, and many of you may not know this, but we used to lock the parks at night with park hours. We quit doing that some time ago because it really just kind of kept us out as far as law enforcement is concerned. But we're going to go back and start securing the parks every evening. We're going to rely upon our ordinance, which is no camping ordinance within the park. And we'll do, I was talking with the chief, and we're going to do consistent close patrols or drive-throughs and make contact with people that may be appeared, like they may be camping, they park their RV in there and explain to them what the ordinance is and that the park closes at this specific time and you'll have to leave and you can come back tomorrow at 7 a.m. when it opens up. And so we've already clearly stated in the ordinance what the park hours are. City, on our side, for assistance with us because of the potential for fuel shortage, community fuel shortages, we're going to go ahead and rent a 500 to 550 gallon fuel tank that we'll have here at the public safety facility for squad cars and any other gas vehicles. We have a diesel tank down at Community Services if we get into a pinch, but we think the diesel should be a little more prevalent since we've got the big Flying J and you got the 18-wheeler trucks that travel along the interstate. Gas may become an issue. So we're gonna order that tank and rent it. Kevin and I were working on that this morning and have it here. And then basically just use that to fuel vehicles until we exhaust the fuel that's in there and then we send it back. We think we'll keep it here for about a month. Administrative staff will be here to assist with any potential issues or emergencies that may arise with the eclipse. You know, some unforeseen major catastrophic event takes place, you know, city manager and I and the admin staff will be able to deal with that, you know, in case there's some kind of emergency that maybe we have to hopefully not convene you guys to do some things to assist us in these issues that may come up. So I did reference the Waco-McLean County Emergency Management because of the timing of the meeting and the presentation that had to be put together and put into your packet. It was before this meeting on the 14th. So the chiefs went to the meeting to get some information. Chief McGrath, Chief Christian gave me some additional, and this is as of just last week. So this is kind of what Waco-McLean County Management is now saying, right? After digesting some of this information, the worst time is going to be the 15 minutes after the event. Everybody's trying to leave and go wherever they're trying to go. So there's a potential for some significant gridlock after the eclipse is done, right? New population numbers, they're looking at maybe up to 100,000 people, but it could be as low as 45,000 people to the community. But again, that's an untold number. You could be up in the Dallas area and want to come view the eclipse and not have a reservation and just come to McLennan County or go to Gatesville or one of the areas that's local, that's close by where the eclipse view is supposed to be phenomenal. and go park yourself somewhere on the side of the road, watch for 4 minutes, and then drive back to Dallas. So we don't know what we'll get. And then McLean Stadium, and I believe it may be Baylor, is having an event. So far, they've already sold 4,500 tickets for the Eclipse over Texas, which will be held at the time of the eclipse at McLean Stadium. So those tickets have the potential to increase as we move forward and get closer to the eclipse. What we did a couple weeks ago, well, actually probably the better part of a month ago, is Wanda and I found some information, and actually really stole some information, but about the eclipse, and we put it on the website for some research for people to look and to get some helpful hints. There's an eclipse tracker that shows you what it's going to look like in Hewitt, Texas at the times that the eclipse takes place. Shows you basically up to the second when the eclipse is expected to happen, the 4 minutes of duration. It talks about the tracker and a population tracker that's in there that follows the eclipse and how many people could potentially move into the area. It's a neat little tool just to look at and try to digest what impact this is going to have on Central Texas. But it also gives information to residents and visitors, and as well as businesses, on what to expect the week up to the event and the event. We have been in contact with the chamber. The chamber has been in contact with their membership to let them know for vendors, restaurants, anybody that may be a member of the Chamber of Commerce, that they need to be prepared for this influx of people coming to the community. And I did talk to Alyssa the other day, and she made a comment that one of the local restaurants, which isn't in Hewitt, had no idea that this was taking place and wasn't even prepared. So now they're trying to gear up, and it's a pretty popular restaurant. So I can imagine that folks would be kind of upset that they didn't have any food or there was nothing to eat in that location. So the word is getting out as far as this. This is actually kind of a neat little thing. So if you get an opportunity to go to the website and check some of the information out, I'd appreciate it. It's pretty neat stuff. All right, with that, I'll entertain any questions you may have. Yes, sir.
Do you think it would be advisable, or maybe you're doing it, putting a sign up at the park entrances if there's no overnight camping?
Yes, sir. Well, that's going to be part of this whole package for the parks. We're going to put some signage up. And because, it's posted on a sign that, you drive past. So we're going to make a big banner at the front to ensure that we don't have just groups of people showing up. And, again, as Chief and I discussed, this is going to be one of these, probably every hour, somebody's gonna have to drive through there and make sure that we don't have anybody, starting to set up camp, so we can notify them and at least get them on their way.
I realize this may not fall totally within the confines of city, but I don't know where else it would, which is, what about issues involving price gouging? How would that be reported, or what are some things that necessarily, because I could see certain situations where that'd be a really ripe time for that.
I think the appropriate would be Attorney General's office. I think if
cool.
we ran across some price gouging, I think we would turn that into the Attorney General's office for an investigation.
Cool.
And again,
It's a little random, but
based on the 2017 presentation that we received from the Emergency Management Department, there was kind of a bit of that. One of the local hotels in one of these communities that's kind of a $65 a night hotel, we're charging like $400 a night, and they were booked. So people were just paying. You had instances of landowners that were opening up their property, and I guess they marked off spaces, and there's a picture in one of the presentations that, I think it was $500 a night for RV parking, and people were gladly paying. So it is a large deal. When I heard about this last year, the first time at the 911 meeting, I was like, the eclipse, what? And now it has turned into this. It's a pretty big deal.
Anything else? Jim, that's a lot of information. The week after, we'll be talking about what happened, but we just, like you said, you just don't know.
Well, I hope it reports nothing.
I mean, doesn't matter if it's cloudy, it's still gonna get dark.
I hope it reported it's just a Monday.
Right,
right.
right.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yes, sir. Anything any more on that? Any other questions? All right. Item number 2 is the public hearing on stormwater mitigation as required by the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, TCEQ. Mr. Thomas?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. The city is required each year by the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality to hold annual public hearings regarding stormwater mitigation. And it is part of our stormwater management plan. The purpose of the public hearing is to give the public the opportunity to apprise the city of issues regarding drainage in natural wetlands that may not be readily known to us as staff. So this is that opportunity annually for them to do that. Mr. Mayor, it'd be appropriate to open a public hearing and ask if there's any public comments, and then once those public comments are finished, then to close that public hearing.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. It is 7:21, and open the public hearing on the stormwater mitigation as required by the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, TCEQ. If anybody, any of the citizens that might be here have any comments or questions? I don't see anybody, so it's 7:21, we close the meeting. Thank you. Next, item number 3, approval of the minutes for the City Council Workshop Regular Meeting of February the 5th, 2024. Open it to council for any corrections and a movement to a motion, please.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I move approval of the minutes as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Potter. We have a motion from Mr. Potter. Ask for a second, please.
Second.
Dr. Bruce. We have the motion from Mr. Potter and a second from Dr. Bruce. This time I'll poll the council. All in favor, just show of hands, please. Thank you. Motion carries. Next, item number 4 is the briefing and discussion concerning the financial statements ending January 31st, 2024. Mr. Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. This is just that monthly activity that we do, those monthly financials that ended on January 31st, 2024 were emailed to each of you on February 12th. This is just an opportunity for the council to inquire, ask questions, make comment should you need to regarding those financials. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, have any questions or anything, Mr. Thomas? Okay. All right. Item number 5 is discussion and possible action on the use of Texas Intrastate Fire Mutual Aid System, TIFMAS, funds for equipment purchases. Mr. Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members, because you remember that we have been participating in the Texas Interstate Fire Mutual Aid System, and we've had several deployments where we've had people, equipment, go out to help with various either wildland fires or other types of issues going on around the state. We've been paid for that equipment use. We've been paid for those people's time as well as overtime to backfill positions for those shift personnel that happen to be out. Well, that fund has developed quite nicely over a period of time. And I know this is probably hard for you to believe, but it really burns a hole in the fire chief's pocket to try to get some of those funds spent. But what we're proposing to you this evening is that we do have some equipment needs in the department. This would be a good use of those funds for these pieces of equipment. And so what we would like to do is we need to purchase some self-contained breathing apparatus air packs at a total cost of $21,507. we need to purchase some supply and attack hoses, nozzles, and manifolds at $26,853. We'd like to purchase a new thermal imaging camera at $3,765, and some miscellaneous small tools and a radio at about $6,500. In addition to those items, we've kind of identified and located in our facilities 3 items, and they are the current AEDs, or the current automatic external defibrillators that are located in our city facilities. We'd like to get those replaced because of the battery life on those particular pieces of equipment, and that would be about $6,347. So this total purchase that we're asking to utilize these funds for would not exceed roughly $65,000. That's a little bit less than half of the total amount of TIFMAS monies we have on hand right now, and we have 2 future reimbursements coming to us, I believe, in excess of $100,000. Is that correct? Yeah. So that fund is keeping itself replenished quite well, and this is what we would like to do with some of those monies. Be happy to answer any questions you, the council, may have, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir. Before calling for a motion, any questions or comments or topics to discuss?
You interested in using those funds for a water well, chief? Just wanted to make
You
sure.
said sure.
He said they just spray it, they don't.
That's what I figured. Just use it.
Okay. Nobody else has any questions? At this time, I'll call for a motion, please.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Bincalli,
I move approval of the use of TIFMAS funds for the purchase of additional equipment and the replacement of city AEDs.
thank you. We have the motion from Mr. Bincalli. Call for a second, please.
Second.
Who did that? Mr. Price?
Yeah.
Mr. Price. We have a second from Mr. Price. We have the motion from Mr. Bincalli and a second from Mr. Price. This time I'll call the council. All in favor, show of hands, please. Thank you. Carries 7-0. Item number 6 is discussion and possible action on resolution number 2024-02, authorizing publication of the notice of intention to issue certificates of obligation and resolving other matters relating to the subject. Mr. Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. We've had at least 2 workshops where we have discussed the anticipated increase in basically the second half of our improvements to the Commerce Plant water facilities, coinciding with our water mill. We've highlighted the additional costs, the things that help generate those additional costs from our 2022, if you will, November of 2022, engineer's opinion of probable cost to February or actually January of 2024. That engineer's estimate of probable cost. Creating a deficiency, basically, between what we anticipated kind of going in to the second phase of what those improvement costs would be of roughly about 3.5 to 3.6 million. And then that last opinion of probable cost that we received was hovering around 5.4 million. And we debated the issues that were in that and what was created in that. And myself and staff made a recommendation to you that we felt like it would be appropriate for the utility to borrow at least $3 million and then pay the remaining portion of what would be owed on that project out of unrestricted utility reserves. We had conversation with Mr. Andrew Friedman from Samco Capital Markets. He's provided a pro forma as to how the utility can handle that type of debt and continue to move forward, including some future possibilities. This evening, Andrew could not make it, but Mr. Ryan Cunningham is here in the audience with us this evening from Samco Capital Markets, should you have any questions. Again, we're providing a calendar here, and there's a couple of things that I want to point out. With the calendar, you see it readily. You may not see it quite as readily in the certificate for resolution and/or the resolution 2024-02 with its exhibit. Based upon those workshops and some of the uncertainties that I heard expressed by council and that type of thing, I went back to Andrew at Samco and asked him, could we change the amount of the borrowing and basically be prepared moving forward, not having firm prices at that particular time. So that certificate of obligation, Series 2024, that you've been contemplating and thinking was $3 million all along, I've bumped that up $1 million to $4 million. Not for any other reason other than uncertainty and trying to be prepared moving forward. The interesting thing about this is if you were to authorize this notice of intention tonight at $4 million, does it mean specifically that you're going to have to borrow $4 million? No, it does not. This works very similarly to kind of how you establish a property tax rate. You have to kind of set a ceiling, and then you deliberate and have hearings, and then you move forward and you establish that property tax rate. Should you get information moving forward from tonight, as long as it's done, and as long as that direction's provided prior to April 15th, that's the key critical date, because that's when receiving electronic bids for the debt would occur. That number can be whatever you want that number to be somewhat. You can move it back to 3 million. You could move it to another number. You just can't go above 4. So I wanted to be sure I pointed that out and highlighted that to you this evening, just because your intention and your resolution with the exhibit says that you are going to ask for $4 million. It says in an amount not to exceed $4 million. So that's the notice that you're providing the public, okay? Where did I want to go from here? One of the other things I will let you in on and tell you tonight, we're not in a position to make any type of recommendation regarding the bids for the second phase, but those were open today at 2 o'clock. And we kind of have a multitude of bids. We have 4, actually, 4 bids. And they range, those bids range from anywhere just over a total of 4.5 million to just under 5.4 million. So as you move forward and we bring that recommendation to you for an award, to a contractor, you can specifically gauge really exactly how much money you want to release or let go of from those unrestricted reserves. But I couldn't do it the other way. I couldn't, we couldn't advertise 3 and then want to go to 4, or advertise 2 and then want to go to 3. It wouldn't work like that. So that's why you see this before you this evening. With that, Mr. Mayor, members of council, it is resolution number 2024-02. It is a resolution directing publication of notice of intention to issue certificates of obligation and resolving other matters related to the subject. Attached to the resolution, you have Exhibit A, and in the very first few sentences, you will see the reference to in an amount not to exceed $4 million for the purposes of these water utility improvements. With that, Mr. Mayor, members of council, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay. All right. Before we move to amendment to the motion, it's open. Everybody, any questions or comments or concerns, please?
I just have one question. If you go up for $4 million, and now we heard at the last meeting, we were looking at a rate between 4 and 4 1/4. If we were to go out and ask for $4 million, and for some reason the rate came in significantly higher than what we thought, could we adjust the quantity of bonds we were selling then, or is it, are we locked into that number?
Mr. Mayor, Councilor Potter, I think that the decision on that has to occur prior to receiving bids on those bonds, or for those certificates of obligation. But, Ryan, do you want to address that question?
Yeah. We need to notify, so what we're gonna do is a competitive bid process, like a lot of way you go out for procurement of other projects, so it's gonna be posted, and the lowest interest rate is gonna win. But we been very conservative in the estimates we've been running, like even at 5% at $4 million, there's still plenty cushion, and we would think it'd be at 4%. And definitely interest rates are volatile, but we have built in that big cushion in there. So as far as adjusting, we need to know that specifically about a week ahead, how much we're gonna borrow, because the financial institutions that are gonna bid are gonna, get the funds ready and bid to take that certain amount. There can be minor adjustments on that, the day of pricing that we do, but not wholesale on it. And, they always reserve the right to reject bids too. That's well within your right to reject bids. If there was an international event and something happened, we had a bond sale, on 9/11 actually, so, and just bids were rejected because the market was going crazy. So you don't have to accept bids if something were to happen. But like I said, we've been conservative in what we've been estimating at, and rates have been, last week we had a sale that came in, under 4%. You have a better bond rating than that ends up being, so.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
But as far as the bids that y'all opened today, we'll see those, and you'll come to us with a recommendation at our March 4th meeting?
We hope to make the March 4th meeting. If not, it'll be the March 18th meeting.
Okay, but still gives us plenty of time before we have to decide 4 or 3 or some other number, correct?
It does. I think for Samco's purposes, I think, the 15th is the day that they're gonna receive bids in a competitive process, but if we could tell them and be very definitive about the number by April 1st, no pun intended, I think we're in good shape.
Yeah, our last meeting in March is March 18th, I believe. So I can see that being okay to do. You'll have those competitive bids no later than March 18th.
We have,
For
we
the
have
water.
evaluated and making a
Making
recommendation,
a
yes.
recommendation to us.
But we are in possession of those bids currently.
Okay.
I see a hand. No? Okay. Anybody else have any questions? Bo, anything else?
No, sir. Mr.
Okay. Ryan, thanks for being here. You know, we never know when we need help. I know Henry's been here, but thank you for being here to answer any questions. Sorry you got to make a drive back, but thank you. Okay, if there's no other questions, I'll call for a movement to a motion, please.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. McKellar.
move approval of resolution 2024-02, authorizing the publication of the notice of intention to issue certificates of obligation and resolving other matters related to the subject.
Thank you, Mr. McKellar. Call for a second, please.
Second.
Mr. Potter. We have a motion from Mr. McCallum, a second from Mr. Potter. This time I poll the council. All in favor, show of hands, please. Thank you. Passes unanimously. Thanks, Bob. That was our last quarter sheet, wasn't it? For adjournment, I poll the council. All in favor? To adjourn?
You want a motion?
Yeah, let's do a motion. Was that a motion, Dr. Lee?
Sure.
Okay.
So,
Dr. Ruth, we have a motion.
Second.
Thanks, Mr. McCallum. I just want to, please, show of hands. Thank you. Thank you. Passes 7-0. It closes at, what, 7:41?
I was looking at that is cool. That's the cool deal, especially the,
Okay, for the election, even though we're not going to cancel it. Okay, this is still part of the, okay.
That's true.
You know what? Brand new. Yeah, these are my favorite pens. I have two pens, they're my favorite.